I'm going to bring up our panelists, and we're going to hear about some of the challenges in the organizations that they are in. And so we're very fortunate to have a fantastic panel with us today. First of all, we have R.P. Singh, who is the Director of HR and Legal at IFCO. Welcome him. We also have Armand Senth, who is the head of HR at Philips, and also comes from a background of finance, sales, as well as HR, so he brings multiple perspectives. Welcome, Armand. We have Mahalakshmi here from Mondelez. She's the head of HR and also has been working across multiple industries in Center of Excellence and Transformation, so very big welcome to Mahalakshmi. And finally we have Dr. Swati Sarangi. She is the head of capability development and corporate HR at Larsen and Toubro, and brings a lot of experience in strategic workforce design, leadership development, and capability development. Welcome. Okay, so I want to build on this last slide with the challenges and start with a very simple question to get the context from our panelists. And I'd like to address this question to everyone, so maybe we can start and just go down the line. What challenge is driving you to digital? And we'll start with Armand.
So I think for us at Philips, because we exist in the B2B as well as the B2C business, it's really the changing customer needs which are pushing us to change our business models and look at everything we do differently. To give you a very quick example, our salespeople for the past 50 years have been selling products, but all of a sudden now we are asking them to sell a service, a software, a technology, and that changes the game completely. So digital for us has different meanings in both our B2B and B2C business, not just on the business models itself, but also how we integrate and apply it into our HR processes within the organization.
Thank you.
You see, my case is slightly different. So I first need to introduce my organization so that you can have the proper perspective about it. I represent an organization called IFCO, Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperative Organization, which is in fact dealing with the fertilizers of the farmers of the country and manufactures about 12 million tons of fertilizer and markets it all over the country. So the challenge before us is to connect with all the farmers, to connect with all the 35,000 cooperative societies who are our members, and at the same time also to connect with the government in getting subsidy on fertilizers. Fertilizer is something which we produce at, say, X price, but we are not allowed to sell at that price. So supposing the cost of production is 25,000 rupees a ton, the government would force us to sell it at 5,000 rupees a ton. The balance is to be given by the government. Now, earlier the system was different. Government used to give on the basis of production of fertilizers. Immediately on production and dispatch, we used to submit our bills with railway receipts and all, and the subsidy used to come. Now, with the call of our Prime Minister for Digital India and direct transfer of benefit to farmers or to any beneficiary, the concept has been changed. And now, all the about 1 million fertilizer dealers all over the country are there, and all of them are now connected with the Government of India portal. So we will get subsidy only when the fertilizer is actually sold. So one bag you sell, it has to go to that website and get entered into the government panel, government website, and on that basis you can raise the invoices. So you can just imagine the magnitude of the whole thing. So that is the reason because of which we are forced to go digital, and we are trying our best to connect all the dots. Thank you.
Thank you.
So but perhaps I'd summarize it in 2 words, survival and growth. So I think that's pretty much the challenges that focus and ensure that we go digital. Externally, because all our consumers, I think the way they shop, the way they consume, perhaps for us, I mean, to your point, there's a wide distributed consumer base. For us to really know what do they really want, digital is such a powerful tool. And likewise, internally, as an HR person, digital is my weapon or my tool to figure what do my internal customers want, yeah? So, I mean, for us to really thrive and grow and perhaps survive and not get wiped out by the external world that's changing, that's really what's driving us to digital.
So here at Larsen and Toubro, we are a project business in the business of projects. So what happens is speed, scale, time, and innovation is important. And we are trying to leverage digital and trying to engage better with customers so that we can derive better value.
Thank you for setting that context. So as we think about all of these challenges, I think one of the big ones is still people have a lot of ambiguity about what are we even talking about. And there seem in that ambiguity to be a lot of digital myths. So this is a question specifically for Mahalakshmi. Can you tell us some of the digital myths you've seen in the organization, and maybe some suggestion on how can the myths be busted?
No, absolutely. So and we're going to have some fun here. Yeah, I'm going to perhaps talk in a slightly light way. So take it in that spirit. So I think half the myths get busted when you're aware that they are myths. So perhaps I'll just stop at that. But I'm happy to share 2 myths, and I'm sure if we go around, all of us will have so many other myths to share. But the first myth that I see around me is that the minute you introduce a lot of digital, jobs will go away. I mean, machines will replace humans and, oh my God, what will humans do, So, and to me, it's a huge myth because technically I don't think jobs go away, jobs get redefined. Because, with digital, actually as an organization, and let's take a Mondelez example. Today, I am able to leverage the power of R&D working with food scientists who are not my employees. And likewise, I'm able to reach interiors of India through my sales force who are again not my employees. I'm able to engage gig workers, in terms of doing design for us who are not our employees. And that's the power of, so therefore, I don't think jobs go away. Perhaps jobs get redefined, who's your worker gets redefined. So that's the first myth. The second myth is a slightly more fun myth. And that myth is that when technology comes in, the natural feeling is that, oh, everything will become so impersonal, Where is the human element going to be, right? How many of you have seen Dream Girl, the Ayushmann Khurrana movie? Some people at least, yeah. So I mean, that whole movie is based on this premise saying that, oh, all of us are sitting watching, building connections on Facebook. So, we don't have time to, there's no one who hamari baat sune. There's no one who's, empathizing and listening to us and understanding us. But flip it another way. Actually the same technology can be a way for you to connect if you want to use it like that, So it's stupid to say that the technology is the cause for intimacy to go away, because you can use the technology to do a video call with your grandkid sitting in the US and see a Diwali celebration there, So it depends what you do with it. So let's stop blaming the digital technology for it. So those are the 2 myths that I was very keen to bust. So I would love to box whoever made that lovely movie called Dream Girl and say, hey, you know what? Maybe it's not an issue with technology. The issue is with how we use it. So those are 2 from my side.
Thank you. Yeah. Great examples. And, this back is the play, and I think it's always been part of the human condition between fear and hope. These myths create a lot of fear usually. On the side of hope, I have a question specific to Armand, because we know that Philips has a goal to improve 3 billion lives by 2030 through innovations of technology. And so that's the type of thing that brings a huge amount of hope. So I would like to ask how, even to date, there's been a lot of transformation to get to this point, and even going toward 2030. How have you moved from legacy organization to where you are today?
No, thanks for the question. So, as some of you might know, Philips is a 130-year-old company, and we were a conglomerate that was manufacturing pretty much everything under the sun, right? From a light bulb to a X-ray machine to, let's say, a garment steamer in your house. And at some point, we realized that that doesn't make sense, right? We are not synergizing our capabilities. We are not synergizing what the customer wants. Until about 10 years ago, we were still doing all of this. And then we decided, hey, it's time to change. And if we really want to be a purpose-led company, and the whole purpose that you just stated, which is improving 3 billion lives by 2020, that is something which drives all our business decisions. And we realized that making more products does not mean we are improving people's lives. I think it's more about providing the right product, the right solution to the customer, which actually they need, not something that we think they need, right? I know there's always this great Steve Jobs quote where they say the customer doesn't know what they want. I personally don't believe in that. I think the customer knows very well what they want, and they drive changes in organizations. They drive organizations to change their business models, like Maha was saying, survival, right, at times. So I think that is really the context which forced us to change. And we started looking at two things. One is digital and one is solutions. And I'm going to focus on digital right now. And what I mean by digital is we want to connect every product or service that Philips has to ensure that, let me just simplify it, if you have an app on your phone, you know exactly how the food processor in your kitchen is cooking, whether your air fryer is cooking the right amount, taking the right amount of oil, whether your air purifier has cleansed your room of all the bacteria. And at the same time, if you're in a hospital and you're going through a CT scan, you know exactly what is happening to you on your phone. So we are looking at that level of digitization, which also means that the entire organization needs to change the capabilities that it needs to build. Like I was mentioning before, we were a pretty traditional engineering company. And to do all of this meant really changing everything upside down. Looking at what really works for us in terms of the right people in the right roles, but also the right processes. Do we have the right architecture, the infrastructure in place? And I think that's something which we've been working hard over the past 10 years. It's a journey, of course. Are we there yet? Definitely not. I was seeing the polls and we were a little surprised that transformation was so high, but because I think we are still at level 2 or level 3, maybe between the two. And this is after 10 years of digital disruption and digital change of the work that we are doing at Philips. So it's really a lot of change management. It's, of course, heavy on the people who are trying to drive this change as well. But if you have the right architecture, if you have the right attitudes, and if you make people understand that what we are doing is actually going to benefit them in the future, the more we become a digital company, the more employees we are adding. So to your point of adding jobs, we've actually added 2 times more employees in India than we were before, after we became a digital company. So we are actually generating more jobs. Digital fluency is actually generating more jobs for us. So those are some of the things which we are doing.
Thank you. Okay, that's very promising to hear. And I think there was Sumant Sinha gave us an interesting perspective this morning, tying into what you said, that digital is a cultural transformation and it needs to be driven by HR. And I thought, wow, that's a tall order. I would add to that, it needs to be driven by leaders. And the human touch and what you said about, it's really leaders who can address people's fears are going to be so much needed in this next phase. So this is a question for everyone, but Swati had, I think, some additional ideas on this about what are the capabilities then that we're really asking for leaders now in this era to move the digital agenda forward.
Well, I think leaders play a very crucial role when we are talking about digital transformation. So, more than skill sets, it's the mindsets and the kind of enabling cultures that leaders create in organizations, which makes digital transformations happen and visions turn into reality. So talking about competencies, what I think is 3 important competencies stand out for me. First is cognitive flexibility. Can we enable the leaders to be really flexible in their way of thinking? Can they shift from one style to another? Can they have the readiness to do it? Can they be curious? Can they ask questions, challenge assumptions? That really is important. Second, what stands out is collaboration. Digital transformation is a lot about breaking silos. It's about collaborating within the organization and even outside, aligning with stakeholders, understanding the unsaid, having empathy. So collaboration really works well when leaders speak the language that digital transformation needs. That really helps. And third is also trying to have courage. Courage to try something new, courage to test, courage to experiment. Because when you're talking about innovation and creativity, it just can't happen from anywhere. Leaders who create a burning platform, and I build on what Arman is saying, try to define the purpose, make people see value in digital, rather than simply following it like a fad. That is what makes the difference. So the best of leaders are the ones who try to make digital a way to be rather than a way to go.
Thank you. Okay. Very nice. Digital is a way to be. I would like to ask the other panelists anything you would add to that in one sentence in terms of being the leading the digital agenda. What do we need from leaders?
See, to my mind, leading the digital agenda should not be the objective. The purpose for the leader should be to get its own organization's objectives achieved. And for that, I think if he has the awareness about digital, he's definitely going to take advantage of the digital.
Thank you.
In one sentence, I totally agree. So I think really the power to unlock growth for the business by reimagining. So I think if I had to put a word, I'll say reimagine is what I would expect out of all leaders.
To reimagine a new future. Thank you.
Yeah, I could actually share a very short story while you were talking about it. You know, one of the benefits of working with so many millennials in your organization is because they speak up, right? And there was this one town hall we were having with a bunch of employees in Pune with our CEO. And it was great because he was talking about, we need to build digital capabilities, solutions capabilities. And one of our new joiners actually asked him, what do you do in digital? Right? So, and that was almost like a wake-up call where we said, hey, it's good that you can stand on the stage and ask people to build on a capability, but what are you doing about it? So leaders who actually lead, who walk the talk by doing things themselves and then asking the employees also to do it, I think that's also a very important and critical way of driving digital fluency in an organization.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Walking the talk. And we know that 70% of digital transformations are failing still today. So this is another area for organizations that brings a lot of uncertainty, a lot of stress to the organization. So I'd like to hear from all of you on what would be your digital do's and don'ts to avoid falling into this 70% of digital transformations that fail.
I think one thing to watch out for would be, as you rightly stated at the outset, is that a digital transformation agenda is not an ask of the digital team alone. It's something which has to cut across the organization. So it is a business agenda and a people agenda at the heart of it. That's very important. Second is, it's also trying to understand what are we trying to achieve because of trying to be digital. So when we have the ask very clearly defined, the matrices that go in, the commitment that sort of gets augured is much richer and more profound. So that would be another thing I would say. Second is, third one for me is that people and culture are at the heart of any digital transformation journey. So more than the digital, let's focus on the second word, which is fluency. How can we integrate digital to be seamlessly as a part of work life and business? If that is where we are heading, can we have processes, can we have structures, can we have mechanisms which are very enabling, which allow people or enable them to flourish, come out with new ideas, do things differently? So for me, I would put it in this order: skill sets, mindsets, and most importantly, enabling culture.
Thank you. Sure. So I think we only have the one microphone. So,
yeah, absolutely. So maybe from my side, if you say what are the pitfalls to avoid, or what are perhaps lessons learned by making mistakes, in one's own career journey, I would perhaps call out two. I think the first one is don't do digital for the sake of digital. To your point, to be very clear on what are we trying to achieve. And then, technology is just one of the various tools you can put in place as your partner, to kind of achieve that. So don't go after digital just because some leader says we got to go digital. Please understand, ask the 7 whys to say why. What are we really trying to get to here? I think the second pitfall to avoid, I would say, and that's a very personal experience, I've made that mistake. Usually different parts of the organization have their own favorite technology, So when I was leading learning, I had a favorite product because that product was fulfilling all the things that I was reimagining when it came to learning. But was it the perfect fit as a broader, architecture of what technology the organization was going for? No. And of course, the way sales works, they always say this can talk to that technology and we'll build a bridge. But the reality is, for a long-term journey, and if I don't know how many of your organizations are on a long-term technology journey, it's good to have one integrated architecture. Because when you try and make a thali or a bhel puri, if one ingredient changes its flavor, the whole dish can go for a toss. Same way, when you have a technology architecture wherein one thing is out of whack, it may just not work. It may work for a short period, but for sustainable, so one of the pitfalls to avoid is don't try and create, a bhel puri today, which tomorrow becomes a disaster. Ensure that there is a long-range thinking and architecture behind, as you decide which technology to embrace as we go on the digital journey. So I think those are two that strike me.
I think you already covered all the points, but to put it differently, I would say that unless you have developed a proper ecosystem in the organization and provided adequate infrastructure and training, I think you should be patient in introducing and becoming digital.
So I'll add on to what Maha was also just stating. I think the important part to understand about digital is it has to simplify the experience of either your customer or your employee. And if it's not doing that, there's no sense in going digital. So that is the number one, criteria you need to have in mind, whether you're deciding to go digital or adopt a certain technology. And the second point, which was very valid, is having that integrated landscape. You could spend tens of thousands of euros on new technologies, but if systems don't talk to each other, no one is going to use them. And that's how digital fails, right? Because one bad apple in the whole basket of technologies can actually stop or prevent employees or your people from adopting digital. So these are the two things I would state to this.
Thank you. So we have an interesting question and exercise to end with, but we have a couple minutes, and I want to see if there's any question from the group. We have a very full room here. Anything you would like to ask our panelists? We can get a microphone over. So yeah, the microphone is coming. We have a gentleman here in the third row.
Hi. So my question is actually related to Industry 4.0. I mean, we say that we are in Industry 4.0, and prior to Industry 4.0, there have been 3 different revolutions, right? And we have undergone massive transformations at that time as well. So the question that I have is that what is so different about this transformation of Industry 4.0 as compared to the other revolutions that have already happened?
Great question. So let's hear, we'll pass around the microphone. What's different now? There's always been transformation.
I think it's speed, because the speed is really very fast, and it's also, I would say, very the kind of a ripple effect, a change in one leading to a change in another. It's very, very fast. So the speed, the velocity, the direction, the variety, all this is very overwhelming.
Maha?
Oh, all of us? Okay.
Do you have?
I would love to challenge by saying nothing is different. I would say that human beings learn to evolve. And let's just accept it. Change is going to happen. Some things will be fast, some things will be slow. We better adapt, So that's pretty much what I would say.
Thank you.
Any other?
No, I think agree with the comments before. I think we live in a VUCA world. I think it's just the pace of new things which come up is what we need to adapt to. I mean, competition is no longer another big organization. It could be two people sitting in a garage somewhere, which will disrupt your business model completely. So I think you have to think big and small at the same time and ensure that agility in the system is there. So I think that's what makes it a little more complex. But otherwise, business models have always evolved. So there's nothing that different.
Thank you. Yeah, and I do agree also with Swati. I think if we look at the rate of technological change, it's going on an exponential curve. So we do see that things are evolving faster, you could say. And in fact, we have one chart I didn't show where it's almost that the rate of technological change is outpacing humans, and there's a big gap left, almost where human beings are being left behind because of that pace. And I think that might be one aspect of it. While it's always been that humans change and adapt, that gap somehow is widening. And that's a concern. I think it is something we need as businesses, as leaders, to make sure doesn't happen, to make sure that in all of this technological change, people, humans, and humanity does not get left behind. Is there one more question? We have a woman here in the front. Yeah, I will let the lady first because back to the gender balance point in the morning. So we have this lovely lady who put her hand up first, and there's a microphone coming for you just here, and then we'll get to the gentleman.
Sure, I'd like to ask the panelists if you can share an example of any digital shift that you might have had in your organization, which seemed like a small step to begin with, but the impact was significant.
Mm-hmm. Mahalakshmi?
So at Mondelez, we are in the world of saying we want to reimagine the future of snacking. Because snacking is anything you put in your mouth other than the three main meals. So we want to reimagine the future and then lead that future, yeah. So we did something very small. So we always used to be talking to our consumers, and there were two departments that would be responsible for consumer insights, okay? We had an agency which was getting consumer insights. So this year, so as we reimagined our vision, globally we actually did one thing which gave us ideas to repeat it in India. So today we do, all of us, across functions do consumer immersions. We don't need to travel for it. We just use technology, and we talk to people about, okay, so what do you munch? Why do you munch that, What are the times wherein you feel you want to munch something, but you don't find what you're looking for because you're looking for a healthy treat right after my gym, So we're trying to create these demand spaces, and I think, so therefore, one very simple thing that we did is today, from the CEO, to the HR executive, to the finance accountant, participates in consumer immersions. We do it once a month, structured, and then unstructured. You can use it many times, using a very simple technology wherein people can just, and there's, of course, a team that pulls together consumers across demographics, who are coming together. They don't know who they're talking to, but there are questions, and, there's a conversation, and then those insights are mapped thanks to technology.
Thank you. And this one more question, and we're going to...
My question is to you and Moninder. What is CCL doing that is very cool in digitization or on a digital learning or leadership development part? That's a huge need for the industry. I'm yet to see something very cool from anyone. And CCL is a well-known organization. You have transformed from analog. I don't know where you are in your digital transformation. But just a question to you and Moninder. What is CCL doing?
And we're happy to have a long discussion, but I'll give you some highlights. And you're right, we're in the middle of our own digital transformation. So we have new systems, but in terms of product, we have new platforms like Compass. We have new digital learning products, but we also have our commercialization and innovation team across the world working on things like a leader bot. It's a chat bot for leadership. Pitch Vantage, it's a digital product where I practice this myself. Hopefully it's helped my presentation skills, as you can see. It's a digital product where you practice giving a presentation, and the screen, if you're not doing well, the people on the screen start looking at their phones. So I've been practicing with that. I think it makes a difference. And these digital products that we have. So we have a new suite. It's tough. We're going through this digital transformation journey like every other business, like our customers. And you see that it brings up a lot of resistance in the organization. So we face it as well. I don't want to take too much time, and we don't have a lot of time left. So I want to move into our final question, and we're happy to talk more about this. And our final question for the panel, in fact, and I invite you all to answer this question on the back of your Digital Explorer card, and they have selected one too. And this is back to hope, because I think for leadership, hope is so important. So I would like to go across the panel and ask you to tell us, what do you hope digital will bring to our planet, to our species, to humanity, to your organization, whatever? What do you hope digital will bring? And if you can show us your picture. And I invite you all, while you're listening, write down for yourself as a takeaway, what do you hope that digital will bring? So maybe we can start, anybody who's ready, and we'll go across.
So I had not seen the card, in fact, when I picked up. But as it happens, it deals with agriculture.
Ah, that's synchronicity.
So it gives the future of agriculture, how it is going to be, how the artificial control of temperature, water, and other things, including the use of robots, is given here. And I think that is going to play a big role in agriculture. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So as I see this card that's there, I was just thinking about digital bringing in resilience and growth. Resilience because you're going to have failures coming your way. You have to bounce back, and growth in all sense, exploring, reimagining, trying new things.
Okay, so I have a picture of an eye staring afar. So yeah, I mean, my true hope is that digital fluency helps all of us reimagine a very, very happy and a hugely prosperous future.
So my card is an elderly person being diagnosed by a doctor via video. So this is linked very strongly with what we are trying to do, which is improve lives. So I really hope that as we get more digitally fluent, our products, our services, everything we do actually helps us improve lives.
Thank you. I have a quote to end on, so can I ask the team in the back to switch back to the PowerPoint, please? And in the meantime, graciously ask you all to please fill out these 5 questions for us on a new report we have coming out that we'll be able to share with you before you're leaving the room. And so in terms of that hope, I would like to share a quote from the book Leaders Make the Future, 10 New Leadership Skills for an Uncertain World. This is Johannesson and CCL together, the latest edition of the book. And I think it speaks very much to all this, that leaders will be buffeted, but they need not allow themselves to be overwhelmed, depressed, or immobilized. How many of you feel that way today? I know as a leader, sometimes I do. In all of this, in the VUCA world, in the digital world, it's more likely for us to feel overwhelmed. Many are studying this right now. So leaders, it's more important than ever, must do more than just respond to a whirl of events. Tough, though respond they must. They must be positive change agents in the midst of chaos, creating the future. Some things can get better even as other things get worse. And that's always been the case. Leaders have had to be positive change agents. It's more important than ever, not just for technology to move forward, but for humanity to go with it. And so with that, we're happy to share more with you on any of it. We'll stick around. Thank you for being a very attentive audience, but a very huge thanks to all the insights and all the experience from our panelists. I think fantastic, and it was a pleasure to be with you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.